Soybeans getting back to $13 a bushel and corn dropping again. We are also going to comment about the September USDA report with Jerry Gidel from Chicago, Illinois. He is also back from a trip through the I-80 in the US Midwest. You will see that right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. So, Jerry, how are you today? You were just back from a trip to the Farm Progress Show, but I want to first comment about the soybeans gaining momentum this Friday and corn dropping a little bit.
Well, this week has been a tough one here. The repercussions of Ida that hit last Sunday, or Saturday night, Sunday situation, and then what the repercussions. Interestingly, this is a different. This particular hurricane that came through New Orleans, and the last one that did this is, of course, Katrina, uh, in 2005, and the levees and the flooding and things like that wasn't the issue. It's just the fact that the wind damage was significant. And I guess this time around it was like a category 4, which is a couple higher than what they had 15 years ago. And it turns up that quite a few transmission lines and things like that, because a lot of oil refineries and heavy industry down there in that part of the world requires a lot of electricity. And so that was a key interesting twist on it. They supposedly reinforced that type of thing ahead of this thing, but it didn't seem to do the trick. Actually, the one thing that stared everybody in the face on Twitter and things like that this week was one of those big transmission towers completely flat on the ground, and the particular high line going down into the water. So, boy, that I assume that they had that shut off pretty quickly, because that would definitely fry some fish that way. But it turns up that that's part of the whole issue. That's the whole reason that things are significantly banged up here, and that's delayed things cause concerns. There was original talks of 3 and 4 weeks. There's commentary now going to the weekend. I think that's part of the reason why we found some stability and maybe a bounce here going, that we might actually get some things up and running. Some of the facilities, one particular one, the cargo was damaged, but many of the other ones are just without power. And if that comes back online and they get this river situation cleared out here, which it looks like they're getting a pretty good job of, we might get this done in another 7 to 10 days, which would be, 2 weeks instead of 4 weeks. And that's a big, big difference in the mindset here on the soybeans, because the soybeans are not the heavy duty numbers of bushels for new crop as we had in corn previously. Here, corn's got a record level of new crop corn on the books at this point, but the Chinese have been ongoing buyers here, and it looks like they're going to continue to be that along the way. And so if you can shift some of these shipments to the Pacific Northwest, there's no doubt about that. But the problem is that the Northern Plains and Minnesota doesn't really have the crop, and they're not really ready to do that much harvesting yet on corn and soybeans. So it's going to be interesting. We still got some struggles, but I think there's some more positive things than they were earlier this week. I think that's the big takeaway from that.
Yes, you mentioned the Hurricane Ida, and I wanted to ask you about the logistics. How does that impact the logistics? I saw some photos of some terminals completely destroyed down in New Orleans.
Well, the one that probably caught your attention there was, and I don't know how extensive that is that the Cargill facility, which is the biggest one down there, by the way. I think it's in Reserve, the town of Reserve. and that had some damage to some of the conveyors, things of that nature, and that logistics issue is important to that one elevator. I think that many of the other ones didn't have that extensive of damage to the terminals itself. The biggest things I just mentioned is the electrical power. You can't run any conveyors. You can't get things organized in the office and everything like that to get these things done and put it into the ocean going trips, and also the fact that we do need to get both the pathway to the ocean, and we also need to get the pathway north. And particularly, I kind of feel like the things north of New Orleans past Baton Rouge didn't really have much impact. That storm took a right-hand turn as it and moved on into Mississippi. There was some winds around, but I think a lot of these barges shut down and kind of pulled up on the side of the road in the river there, and are ready to resume if that's the case. Now, the key thing is that we've got things to ship. Are the ocean-going world ready to take it? And that's the other issue we've got to figure out.
All right, and you have been traveling to some areas of Iowa and Illinois. Most recently, you've been to the Farm Progress Show. My curiosity goes for the farmer sentiment there and what you have seen in the fields.
Well, going to the Farm Progress Show, which is the largest gathering of farm machinery and demonstrations and things like that in the U.S. And it alternates from a site in Decatur, Illinois, one year, and then it's out west of Ames, Iowa, on the alternate years. And that I've consistently come to the one in Bloomington, because I can get down there basically in a day and a little bit more and be back. From there, I think the one thing I picked up going to the show this year, and it's always interesting that if you remember, we had our Central Illinois tour that we went down into some same general areas of that. We came away with a very kind of consistent, pretty solid, good crop of corn. Beans look pretty good overall, that kind of stuff, green carpeting kind of thing. I'd have to say that things, it's a month later, and interestingly enough, normally this time of year, the maturity does go further along. We have more dry down leaves, things like that. But this year I was quite surprised by the amount of area between I-80, which is the major east-west interstate in the US, south of Chicago, on down towards Pontiac, which is about halfway between Chicago and Bloomington, and that which is north of Decatur. And I was really surprised by the maturity, how quickly it had picked up, and that quite a few, brown stalks and leaves and things like that. And I guess talking to some people down that way, they think it's a kind of a combination of both some disease issues that's come into it, the heat that we've had on an overnight basis, and that on that particular area, and also denitrification. That's an area that had some rain activity both earlier in the summer when Central Illinois had it, and then they've also had some recently on things. And so the denitrification, there wasn't any nitrogen there to keep going, so let's shut down. Do I know what that means to yields in that area? Definitely, it's probably took a nick off of it. Same thing as I saw some other places in the state going there and back. From that point, I think in general, that's the things that make this interesting. We had some very record yields for Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. I realized that things look pretty good early in the summer. I'm not so sure that the finish east of the Mississippi has been good. The twist of it is the west side of the Mississippi has had some more rains than it had before. In some places, they got way too much up there in that corridor from, southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. Yet they were in the area that was dry ahead of time. And that's the whole issue this time of year. How much does rain help you in corn, particularly if it's highly advanced and that it doesn't really add a lot to it, even from the standpoint of test weight. Sometimes the crop is already kind of set in stone, but that's kind of the issues we've got, and that's where next week's USDA report is going to be our first step in figuring out what size we have here for the 2021 corn and soybean crops.
Yes, yeah, and I checked your updated numbers for the next report, and I see no change there from August.
Uh, well, for on the old crop stuff, we've had some minor changes here on demand. Are you looking at the S&D, or are you looking at the
The supply and demand estimates.
yeah, the supply and demand numbers from there? No, there's not any huge changes going on and things. This is a time of year when you're kind of making minor adjustments and going into the year. I'd have to say that the swing down in ethanol and output of the last well, really it started after Memorial Day. There was a little bit of a push into the July 4th, but since then, most of those processors and semi-ethanol plants have kind of sit back and waited to see if they can get cheaper corn to process, because they got plenty of stuff in their stocks. And I kind of anticipate that to be down maybe as much as 35 to 45 million. And then even the exports at the end of it, we had adjustments down there. I'm kind of looking for about a 90 million or so, 95 million increase in old crop. The interesting thing gets back to the new crop side of this thing. I think the other thing is threw kind of a wrench into this thing has been the USDA decided here a couple of days ago, they let the announcement out that they were going to go ahead and make some adjustments in utilizing the farmers FSA, which is the Farm Service Agency's statistics that they gather to be a part of USDA programs. You have to register how many acres you had planted, corn and soybeans, wheat, whatever it might be, sorghum, and that. And if you're in part of the insurance programs and things like that, normally that starts with the August and September, and then October is when the USDA traditionally utilizes those numbers to try to combine their survey of producers out there versus the registration at the government office. And that's been the twist here, is that we had a big number back in August, and now some people thought that meant that on a seasonal basis, we could see a number on planted acreages here on corn, maybe up over 1 million, maybe 400 or 500, 600,000 on soybeans. And that as time went on, and that there seems to be an attitude that maybe it's the fact that it's the percentage of the crop at this point is just further along, so maybe they're not going to have full steps up, but that still is a big unknown to add into this thing. Of course, we've got the yields going back and forth from east to west and things of that nature, and so it's added one more complications to this thing, and really has turned into next Friday's report is going to be highly anticipated as everybody tries to figure out combinations, because even we planted more acres in the west, the weather wasn't that cooperative. Maybe it didn't, most likely not all those planted acres are going to be harvested. So there's the one more twist in this.
I would like to ask you still about today's number of jobs reported in the United States. It's well below what was expected by the market. And how do you think this is going to impact on the commodity markets?
You talking about the unemployment or the number of jobs created?
Number of jobs created.
Well, that's psychologically this issues that are going on here with the Delta variant and the impact of, are we really starting to really ramp up for complete reopening of our society here in the U.S., or aren't we or not? That's definitely a highly important factor. And at this point, a lot of caution, and rightly so, from the standpoint that boy, you talk about the middle of June, everybody was optimistic that if things were really going to be going kind of full bore here by Christmas time and back to normal and all kind of stuff. And this Delta variant has made a huge impact again on the number of hospitalizations and things like that. And so a lot of people that were planning on being back in the office here, office workers and things like that, they're postponing those people coming back. So it's kind of gave a pause here. So yeah, that I don't know. It's a death knell for the of the economy, but it's definitely maybe not ramping up as quickly as we hoped it might have been here in the U.S. But that's this particular health issue has been a tough one to get under control here. Hopefully, the more people will take this idea that everybody needs to be vaccinated, so we can maybe get past this next notch in our problem here.
Any other thoughts, Jerry?
Any other thoughts? Well, I guess this time of year is always a little tricky as you make the transition from old to new crop in the demand issues, how people are starting to look at things. We haven't got our official, we're going to get an estimate next Friday, but we're also going to end up probably within, say, 14 to 21 days, we're going to start to see some early yield numbers and things like that. I'd have to say that when I talk to various people here, both at the show and other people I know in the business here, they all continue to be kind of surprised how variable it is in their areas where there's good crops and bad crops. And wow, it looks so much better. It's hanging in there. There's a lot of uncertainty as to what we're looking at here for the 2021 crop year. And then the other twist of this whole thing is China. They've been a big buyer here. They've got stuff on the books, things of that nature. One thing that's kind of twisted, kind of popped up in here the last day or two, is that they went ahead and canceled some of their Ukrainian barley purchases, and that's not huge. I think it's about 400,000 tons of barley in that they bought earlier in the year. But some people are looking at it saying, oh, we're going to trade out of this high price barley and we're going to buy corn. Well, that's a positive for the corn market. But in general, the U.S. barley crop is not in the best of shape. Hopefully, we got enough around for some beers here, but I think we do from that standpoint. But all these little twists and turns here. The Russian crop is where it's at. I think the one last thing we don't want to forget about is the fact that I'm not sure we're not going to get another adjustment in the Brazilian corn crop. They brought it down last month to 87. A lot of people thought it was way below 80. I don't know if we're gonna get that low or not, but the trade average guess is down around 84 and a half. I'm at 83, thinking it's going to be there. That's part of the reason why that the carryover stock on corn is still going to be, even with maybe an increase in acreages here, and that I'm not looking for a big yield change here going up and that, but our exports still could be a little higher than the USDA projected last month on corn. So you can talk all kinds of different directions, but right now, I guess we'll wait till next Friday and see what they have to say.
All right. That was a great conversation. Thank you, Jerry.
No problem. And always good to be around and be talking with you, Lewis. And next Friday will be a big day for us all to talk about when we get there.